Welcome back, Bobcats. Welcome everyone to the formal opening of the 2020-21 academic year. So glad to have you here today with us at the university's convocation ceremony, and I dare say the first one being done virtually in this way, but it is great to have you all here. And so we're just going to give everyone a minute or so to be joining with us today. We have faculty, staff, students all signing in. And so we'll just give people 1 minute. And, you know, let me just say that it really is a pleasure to be here and be part of this formal opening of, for me, which is what is my first Quinnipiac, opening of my first Quinnipiac academic year. All right, so I think we're gonna go ahead and get started with the formal program. And to kick us off is President Judy Olian, who is going to formally welcome everyone to this unusual and excellent academic year. Go ahead, Judy.
Thank you, Deb, and welcome Provost Leibowitz as the provost for the first time at this convocation. This is my third convocation. Good evening, fellow Bobcats. It really is a tremendous joy and satisfaction to welcome you back as we begin Quinnipiac's 91st academic year, 91. It goes without saying that this has been and will be a year unlike any other in our history. The pandemic has reshaped broad aspects of what we do, but it will not redefine who we are. Time and again throughout our history, Quinnipiac has forged circumstance into opportunity. We'll do no less today and into the future. You know, I've heard some pundits and prognosticators predict that 2020 will be a lost year. Indeed, the pandemic has afflicted losses on families from all walks of life. Businesses have struggled, and the comforting day-to-day rhythms of our lives are often disrupted. Here close to home, we've had to impact beloved faculty and staff and cut costs in ways we wish we didn't have to. We cannot and should not turn away from the realities of this year. Instead, we must rise to meet them and soar past them. We have and we shall. True to our past and true to our character, we'll not allow circumstance to steal 2020. It will not be a lost year, but a year of discovery and growth in which we demonstrate to ourselves, to our students, and to the communities we serve how adversity and uncertainty uncover new strengths, elicit innovation, surface compassion and kindness, and teach new skills that infuse added meaning and purpose into our lives. That's the spirit in which we go forward into this new year. Last year, seems like decades ago, under very different circumstances, I issued 3 challenges. First, I asked you to think institution first as we embarked on the initial phase of implementing our strategic plan. Institution first meant prioritizing the intellectual, academic, and community goals of our strategic plan to meet the needs of future generations of students. It was a call to action consistent with our institutional tradition of looking forward rather than looking back. While none of us could have anticipated just how this institution first mantra would manifest itself in ways that were, and brought to life in ways that were inspiring, humbling, and frankly, essential for our continued success. For example, every single day since February, the COVID task force has met to challenge and tackle the reopening of our campuses every single day. Across the entire university, every school, department, division, unit has labored over the challenges of not just returning to campus, but staying here with the characteristic excellence in teaching, operations, and student care that we've always offered. We've devised a complex testing program before and after students arrive. We've implemented de-densification, isolation, quarantine, health self-assessment, contact tracing capabilities. We've revamped dining procedures, introduced Zoom technology into each of our 225 classrooms, and of course, totally transformed our teaching approach and delivery through the new QFlex model. There hasn't been one person across the entire university who hasn't volunteered, stretched, or risen above the usual. It has been nothing short of astonishing to see how our university has galvanized to problem solve, to make the impossible possible, to put institution first. You've reminded me of a quote that doesn't mince words, and in this instance is perfectly apt. History is made by those who give a damn. I have seen you do so much more than give a damn. The second challenge of last year was that we engage in acts of individual kindness. That's been the silver lining to the COVID-19 crisis. The virus has catapulted that quality of the Bobcat family to the forefront, from the many faculty, students, and staff who made masks for frontline healthcare, public safety, and facilities workers, students who delivered groceries to those who couldn't venture out, to working in food banks, helping those enduring food insecurity, to opening homes to students who couldn't travel back to their families, to simply reaching out to comfort someone who is isolated and lonely. I could go on, but I'm so proud and grateful for the kindness that you show every day. We're educators at heart. Like you, no doubt, I'm so happy to be back and to see our campuses and residence halls come alive. While about 630 of our traditional on-ground undergraduate and graduate students have elected to study remotely this semester, the rest, over 93%, will be taking in-person classes on our campuses. I've spoken to many students over the last week, and to a person, they are beyond overjoyed at the opportunity to be studying on campus, and so grateful that we're indeed open on ground for learning. For example, I learned how one first-year student from Massachusetts had his car packed and ready last Saturday as he anxiously awaited the result of his required COVID pretest. The email finally arrived on Saturday at 5 o'clock with his negative test result. At 5:01, he and his parents jumped into their car and sped down the Mass Pike to make the 8 p.m. move-in deadline. He was that excited to become part of the Quinnipiac community and to start his college experience. As of last week, we have a total of 2,016 first-year and new transfer students arriving from 34 states and 30 countries, including the US. That's about 250 more than last year, at least at this point. The average GPA of our incoming students is 3.49, higher than in previous years. While we naturally tend to zero in on our world within the QU campuses, we cannot forget our place in the broader society or our duty to it. Throughout the summer and right up to this past week in Wisconsin, we've seen images of crowded cities with protesters demanding justice for their fellow citizens as the struggle continues to overcome the bias and discrimination that has defined long eras of our national history. In July, our university committed to a 10-point plan of action to advance racial justice to bring about change in our community. We cannot deny or turn away from actions or words that have harmed our own Bobcat family. Being against racism and bias is not enough. We have to take action that brings about fundamental and lasting change and equips our students and later our graduates to counter discrimination in society. The cancel culture is not the answer. That does not achieve lasting change. Lasting change happens when we each engage in true soul searching and self-examination of why and how we act and think. It includes education about the roots of racism and understanding of history, of how meaningful change is achieved. This fall, we'll be expanding faculty, staff, and student training on diversity, equity, and inclusion. We're reviewing curricula to identify opportunities to incorporate and contextualize across disciplines the historical and contemporary drivers of oppression and social change. We're implementing a clear and easily accessible system to report and follow up on bias incidents. And we're enhancing the recruiting pipeline for faculty, staff, students, and administrators of color. We have a lot of work to do, but we are making some progress. Students of color comprise 21.3% of our incoming class, which is 2% above last year. In particular, through our partnership with New Haven Promise, I'm really gratified that we went from 3 to 12 first-year students joining us through the Promise program. While we focus on the future, we must understand our past. Here at Quinnipiac, our name and our land come from the indigenous people of this region, and we must do better in accurately honoring their legacy. It begins with something simple, refining the legend of the Bobcat as we continue to work with the Accomaut Educational Center to appropriately represent those who walked this land before us. Our diversity enables us to learn from each other, to become more enlightened global citizens, to forge relationships built on mutual respect. We must listen, we must hear. That seems simple, but it appears that we are not doing so well at that as a society. You may have noticed that we're in an election year, and it's loud, but we can help take the volume down. I am not going to use this platform to declare that this candidate is better than that one, or that red is better than blue, or vice versa. It is for each person to examine and decide. Our plan for inclusive excellence is to build a big tent, a tent that allows all sorts of ideas, of points of view, of life experiences, of solutions to society's ills. We can disagree without being disagreeable, and we must help our students embrace the art and skill of engaging in constructive conflict powered by respectful dialogue. We don't have to agree. In fact, great institutions of higher learning like this one should actually encourage robust, respectful discourse in which disagreement is a vital ingredient. That process of challenge and response sharpens thinking, advances science, expands knowledge, and fosters understanding. Our mission is to prepare students for a world that is changing, where events are shaped and ideas improved because of diverse views. For many of our students, this campus may be where they're exposed for the first time to ideas and theories and points of view that challenge what they've been surrounded with all their lives in their homes, schools, or neighborhood. That's a good thing. We all need to be open to a world that is different from what we know, from what is familiar or comfortable. What we need to ask, encourage, and even prompt is that our students engage, get involved, listen, discuss, and take a stand. That is why our action plan, in partnership with our student leadership, includes a voter registration drive in advance of the November elections. I ask that we all partner in achieving this vital goal of a democracy, a citizenry that votes. I said at the outset that we will not allow 2020 to be a lost year, and that our culture and tradition compel us to find opportunity in disruption. That is the QU way. Alongside planning for the fall, we established the Reimagine Committee that continued to forge ahead with innovations that will propel and accelerate our path forward as the university of the future. Which brings me to my challenge to you for this coming year. Beyond the immediate responses to the COVID crisis, which are, I know, taxing and draining on everyone, let us lift our thinking above COVID and extend our sights to the bright future of Quinnipiac, to the goals we have forged in our strategic plan to become a beacon of innovation, of genuine inclusivity, of relevance to the future, a destination for lifelong learning where individuals have opportunity to fully thrive. Let us take the challenge to persist in our pursuit of the bold and ambitious future of Quinnipiac as we've articulated in our strategic plan. In fact, the third challenge last year was to position students for the mindset of the 21st century through curricular offerings that anticipate tomorrow's demand for intellectual and functional skills. Today, that means being data savvy. We started with the goal of embedding data analytic skills across the curriculum, and that objective is advancing. Our plans this year include the rollout of some new degree and certificate programs, including a BS in data science, a BS in business analytics, a green belt certificate in Lean Six Sigma, an MA in cinematic production management, and a doctorate in occupational therapy. We're also modifying the general undergraduate degree in business to be more specialized to a BS in applied business, in applied supply chain management, or in human resource management. Across the curriculum, innovations are centered on QFlex, the exciting fusion of technology and pedagogy, for which we owe an enormous debt of gratitude to our faculty for their investment in new learning models, and to our dedicated IT staff who have enabled the ubiquitous presence of Zoom technology throughout our campuses. We're also seeing opportunities to connect with new student segments that are especially aligned with the fourth pillar of our strategic plan, adult learners. The dependence on remote platforms like these, Zoom, Teams, or BlueJeans, has accustomed more individuals to connecting virtually in order to invest in their own advancement. We plan on expanding our reach to non-traditional adult learners through certificates and programs suited to the emerging skill and knowledge needs among these populations, some of whom are already QU alumni. A couple of weeks ago, when I was welcoming the 308 graduate students joining us this fall, I noted an impressive statistics. Students in this incoming graduate class range in age from 17 to 59. That tells me that QU is already attracting and engaging adult learners who embody a commitment to lifelong learning. I mentioned earlier that more than 93% of our students have elected to return to campus for in-person and hybrid learning. I feel that they're so connected to our Bobcat family because of the special people that are the family who bring it to life. While I could post the names of pretty much every member of our faculty and staff community as the reason our students flock back to their Quinnipiac nest, this year we have chosen to honor 6 remarkable individuals who are the recipients of the 2020 Center for Excellence Awards. Allow me to provide special recognition to the recipients of the Center for Teaching Excellence Service to Students awardees: Jason Burke, Director of Veteran and Military Affairs; Joseph Podziadlo, Associate Director of Technology Services; and Erin Provostalis, Director of Campus Life for Student Centers and Student Involvement. The Center for Teaching Excellence 2020 Teaching Awardees are Idrisu Awudu, Associate Professor of Management in the School of Business; Jonathan Blake, Professor of Computer Science and Software Engineering in the School of Engineering; and Michelle Geremia, Professor of Biology at College of Arts and Sciences. Please join me in congratulating these colleagues and in expressing our deep admiration for their excellence. It's a truism that the people make the place. They do, like the exemplary individuals I just listed. Yet at Quinnipiac, perhaps because of the beauty of our campuses, there is also a powerful connection to our physical environment. We are undeniably rooted in a place, this place, and we'll continue to invest in our environment. A task force is completing the campus sustainability plan. We must ask also what the campus of the future will look like given all that we've learned over the past 6 months. In some way, it'll look a lot like what we have, but informed by new learning approaches, programs, certificates, and new learners who represent the university of the future. In our commitment to the future, we remain intent on realizing the new wellness center, albeit a bit more slowly, because nurturing the physical and emotional well-being of students, faculty, and staff is central to our purpose. Following on the results of the Master's Facilities Plan, we'll also scope academic and student facilities that will support our expanded needs. I said at the outset that history is made by those who give a damn. That we are here today and back on campus is historic, because so many of you gave a damn. The permanence of Quinnipiac is beyond doubt. I challenged you last year to put institution first. To be honest, you blew away whatever expectation I might have had. Many other institutions similar to us are not where we are today. We are here because of your collective efforts. I can tell you that never once over the past 6 months did I doubt our long-term and bright future. The strength of our board's commitment, the deep institutional roots we have, and the fervent pride in our values only reinforced my confidence in our future, in our resilience, courage, agility, and single-mindedness of purpose. This year will be shaped by some factors outside of our control. Yet I repeat my challenge: let our creativity and energy rise above those ills so that together we continue to imagine and assemble the university of the future. From the bottom of my heart, thank you. You are the soul of this institution, and I'm honored to stand with you as we begin this very unique 91st academic year of Quinnipiac's history. Thank you.
Thank you so much, President Olian, for your opening remarks. And now it's my pleasure to be able to just say a few words to you. And I can't actually remember if I introduced myself, so if I didn't, I'm Deborah Leibowitz. I am the provost here at Quinnipiac. It is really my pleasure, as I said, to be with you this evening as we officially open the academic year. And as is the case whenever we are starting something anew, the opening of the academic year is always punctuated with a kind of excitement and anticipation, a bit of nervousness, especially for those of us like me who are new to the community. But this year, unlike others, the anticipation and the excitement are there, and yes, all the more intense, along with the nervousness. There's a lot at stake, and I want to suggest that this tremendous opportunity, or suggest that there is a tremendous opportunity that comes from this newness, from this unusual nature of the moment in which we find ourselves. And I really want to center my remarks on this point about what these changes offer us and our way forward, what kind of thinking and what sort of work the university's forward thinking, as it is evidenced by the staff and the faculty's development of the QFlex model, is representative of exactly how we want to position ourselves for the future. It's indicative, I think, of the kind of habits of mind that we strive for our students, and that the faculty and staff try to exemplify. And so, like any good academic, I'm going to make this point by talking just briefly about a book I recently read called Range. It's authored by David Epstein. And the book is about approaches to learning, ways of thinking about jobs and professions of the future, and about the role that technology will play in it all. And in the book, Epstein differentiates between environments where patterns reoccur and where feedback is quick and accurate, easy to discern, and ways of thinking about where the patterns are easy to discern, and something that he says is indicative of many jobs and professions of the past. He also contrasts those fields where patterns are pretty easy to discern with what he calls wicked learning environments or wicked work environments, those in which we often find ourselves today. These wicked fields are characterized by patterns that are harder to discern, where feedback is really complicated, where in fact feedback can be delayed or even contradictory, where situations are very complex, and so they send contradictory signals. And so just to make that more tangible, something like, a field of classical music performance or maybe because I was just listening to a story about Serena Williams and the US Open, the field of tennis is it's the kind of thing where you can practice over and over again, where the rules are relatively consistent and where your responses don't change that dramatically. So here the adage, practice makes perfect, really works. But the wicked environments are places like today's emergency room, or our attempts to deal with international financial forecasting, or solving the world's refugee crises, or dealing with issues of racism and gender inequality, things like technological innovation in engineering. And in the book, Epstein argues that great rewards accrue to those who can take conceptual knowledge from one problem or domain and apply it entirely in a new one. And he suggests that in many of these kinds of fields, in fact, the more constrained or repetitive a challenge, the more likely it will be automated in the future. And so the bigger the picture, the bigger the field, the more unique the potential and the more possibility for human contribution there is, because it is in our ability to innovate and to integrate different forms of knowledge and different kinds of experiences to make connections that it is out of that innovation and the future will be born. And so it's really this ability to be flexible and synthetic by bringing together those on and off campus, by rapidly adapting to our current circumstances and challenges that faced all of higher ed last spring, and the way you all did it by developing this new model. That's exactly the kind of learning environment I think that Epstein is arguing for. So thank you to all of the faculty and staff who have been instrumental to its development and implementation. And here a special shout out to those being honored this year by the President and the Center for Excellence. But what I really take away from Epstein's book that I think is useful this year at QU is that we need to really embrace the learning stance, or take a learning stance toward this moment. That is going to be critical for all of us, faculty, staff, and students. And I know it's critical for me as I embark on this new job. But recognizing that in Epstein's terminology, the playing field that we are on is wicked. The situations are complex, there's no clear path forward, and as we all know, feedback will come in many forms and will no doubt be contradictory. And so while that is challenging, I am really pleased to be part of a community of faculty and staff and students who have been drawn here because they're dedicated to this kind of exploration. To the people who see and embrace the complexity of the moment and innovate for the future, who are willing to think about how to use technology in new ways, and then in doing that, want to walk beside our students to assist them, you, in figuring out your own path through this wicked environment. So it is this approach that I think will help all of you, I hope, new and returning students alike, figure out how to get not just the right answers, but how to ask the important questions. So it's my advice to students is, in this process, engage actively, explore the options that are here for you, and let your mind tackle the complex problems and questions, even when you don't know exactly what the outcome of doing so will be. Be open to new ways of learning and walk beside all of us as we navigate together these uncharted waters. I am convinced there's no better place in which to do this. I'm thrilled to join all of you here at Quinnipiac, and I look forward very much to getting to be part of this vibrant community. So now, in switching back to my MC role, it is my great pleasure to introduce, my junior colleague, because he has been here 2 weeks less than me, Dr. Tom Ellett, who is the Quinnipiac's new Chief Experience Officer. So, all right, Tom, take it away.
Thank you very much, Provost Leibowitz. Good evening, and welcome to a new academic year where we truly all are starting with a blank canvas. You know, it's so easy for us to look at this year with fear and concern, and that's all fair. I feel it too. But as much as it's scary, it's also exciting and freeing. Think about it for a minute. The whole idea of doing things a certain way because it's always been done that way is gone. Because there are many things we can't do at this moment in time. Together, we're starting a new academic year, a new era, really, full of promise, potential, and possibility. Never before in the history of higher education has this opportunity truly existed. Together, faculty and staff, we have the opportunity to make our mark and benefit not only our students' experience, but the generation of Bobcats who follow. And what's not exciting about that? My role here, as Provost Leibowitz said, is the Chief Experience Officer. Think of me as Quinnipiac's Imagineer, just like all of you should be Imagineers for our students' experience, one where faculty and staff are pivotal to realize student potential. I'm here to look at today's reality and imagine what can be done better for our entire Bobcat family's journey. But I can't do it alone. I need your help, faculty, staff, and of course, students. All of us together will make this happen. Although I've only been here for 1 month, starting tomorrow, I've personally witnessed the spirit of Bobcat Nation. It is alive and well. I'm still feeling invigorated after hundreds of Bobcats descended on top of the quad last night under the stars, or close to the stars coming out, to discuss what they love about this place, why they came here, and how they can make it better. A new and innovative program called Pods on the Quad. It was a really amazing and inspiring way for me to kick off my time here at Quinnipiac. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Who is this guy on the computer screen promising to help our community think through the student experience? Well, as Provost Leibowitz noted, I'm Tom Ellett, and I've spent 34 years working in higher education. But my most formative years occurred when I was myself an undergraduate on a quad thinking about my future. It was a night quite like tonight. Fall was in the air, and it was my senior year. I thought about it being my last hurrah as a college undergrad, an English major, but with the dream of working in theater. I just finished my second floor meeting as a resident assistant for 64 first-year students. They had energy, excitement, and nervousness of being in a new community. While I had excitement for my senior year, I was counting the days that I was going to be living my professional dream, working on Broadway. Groups of students with similar excitement about the long-term dreams, but at different parts of our paths. I was close to ending mine, where my students on my floor were just beginning theirs, looking for friends, wanting to be accepted by others, and just wanting to have fun. And for me, looking for an internship, a part-time job, and starting to realize that this was my last year to hang out in the dining hall for as long as I wanted, sleeping until noon if I felt like it, and also having the reality the next year I'd be paying rent. Different places in the journey. And so it is with each of you, our faculty preparing for instruction using the QFlex model, students at all places on the academic pathway to graduation, and staff ready to support student needs outside the classroom. And me joining in at this moment in time to be Quinnipiac's first Chief Experience Officer. In many ways, things haven't changed since that autumn evening on the quad of my senior year. I've never lost really the thought and desire to know students' journey. Why are they choosing to study this or that? Having faculty members to engage with and dialogue about what it was that I would be doing and hearing their expertise, and also partnering with staff and having them maintain the essential functions and educational purpose outside the classroom on a college campus. This beautiful, truly picturesque Quinnipiac Quad has already become an extension of my office. On the first Friday night of first year check-in, I sat under a tree with a group of first year students in a circle, physically distanced, getting to know their dreams and aspirations while studying at QU. And then again, later in the week, getting to know and learning from many dozens of students, faculty, and staff who had the opportunity to give a cookie to and walk across the quad with them. As diverse as our community is, there's one thing that ties us all together. Everyone loves this university and is committed to making it better. A key part of that is through honest, real dialogue that can sometimes make us feel a bit uncomfortable. Part of my role is to push students out of their comfort zones. Many of you will change majors during your time here as students, in many cases, several times. And I and others will help you, our students, see new possibilities, opportunities, and the passions that you have within yourself. When I think of the idea of helping to frame the student experience, I realize it can be a very daunting experience. So many of you at different places on your journey, different needs and ways in which you need very different services, programs, and interventions at QU. It's up to all of us to take responsibility to improve Quinnipiac, where we find opportunity for improvement. One thing that most excites me about this university and all of you is how nimble this community is. Quinnipiac embodies the nimbleness and agility of, I'd say, a bobcat. Yes, a bobcat. Easily able to reposition and adjust relatively quickly, even though it may not always feel that way. We're a community of 10,000 students, more than 50,000 alum, and 2,000 faculty and staff collectively. We are Bobcat strong. And we need to let our surrounding communities hear us roar. Through increased voting, through our voter registration drive and service to our community, as well as greater integration with our alumni. We are most successful when we have people converging for our success. We are fortunate to have a large percentage of first-year students who choose to live on campus, but we see that number drop off with each year at Quinnipiac. I'm committed to working with faculty and staff colleagues to think through the residential experience so that more students realize the benefits of the campus home, because it sets the framework to create the family-like community we want to foster here at the university. But my attention goes well beyond that. I'm committed to working with each of you to better the entire Quinnipiac experience, including through better integration across the university. For example, we're in a discussion phase of the creation of a one-stop experience where everything can become much more seamless and without frustration for our students. I imagine a day where a student pays their bill, can get immediate access to their financial aid, the registrar, their Q card, housing information, and health data information, just to name a few. And finally, working on how we offer enhanced, meaningful wellness resources for all of our community, as President Olian mentioned, through technology and a facility that supports this initiative. If you are a student who experienced barriers to your success, a faculty member or staff who have ideas to improve the student experience, let's start a conversation. You have a lot to offer me, even if you don't realize it. So stop by, see me on campus, pull me over, or if I'm in the Hamden community, say hello. Don't want to lose your thought? Send me a note at my new email address, cxo@qu.edu. Tell me how you're feeling. We are all in this together. Go Bobcats.
Thank you, Dr. Ellett. And I somehow, with our dueling Bobcat backgrounds, I somehow feel a little competitive. And it's like, well, I have an email too, provost@quinnipiac.edu. All right. Thank you. And with that, I turn it over to the much more serious, with his formal academic background, Dr. Don Sawyer III, Vice President for Equity, Inclusion, and the Chief Diversity Officer. All right, turn it over to you, Don.
Thank you, Provost Leibowitz. Good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here to start the new year with you. I would like to first start my time with a moment of silence for Chadwick Boseman, our Black Panther. I'll never forget the look in my children's eyes when they saw T'Challa on screen. Seeing a superhero with a similar complexion leading a fictional African nation cannot be underestimated. I'm grateful for all he has given us. And I'd like to say to him, Rest easy, King. Wakanda forever. I would also like to give a special shout out to our newest members of the Bobcat Nation. I had a chance to speak with you, the first year students, a few weeks ago during the orientation sessions. And I was able to share a piece of knowledge that I obtained by listening to a young urban philosopher by the name of Dominique Armani Jones, also known as Little Baby. Despite what we are experiencing right now, he asked us to see the bigger picture in his song, Bigger Picture, and I quote, "It's bigger than black and white. It's a problem with the whole way of life. It can't change overnight, but we gotta start somewhere. Might as well go ahead, start here. We done had a hell of a year. I'm gonna make it count while I'm here. God is the only man that I fear." And so I asked the question, how do we commit to this process of change? How do we start where we are, and how do we make what we do actually count? The current state of our nation and the world requires us to come together more than ever to answer these questions. The year 2020 has brought us moments of pain, sorrow, loss, and at times, moments of joy. At times, my heart is heavy, yet I'm still hopeful. When contemplating what I would say to you today, I kept thinking of the words community and humanity. I recall the word I learned when visiting South Africa, Ubuntu. Ubuntu is a Zulu term meaning humanity, and it is often translated as I am because you are. Callie Robb states, humans cannot exist in isolation. We depend on connections, community, and caring. Simply put, we cannot be without each other. There is so much that has happened over the past few months. We're living in the midst of a global pandemic. We have experienced racial uprisings in our nation. We have seen people come together to fight against racism and push us to do better as a nation. We're nearing a presidential election that we know will bring on a volatile environment. This will be the first time many of our newest Bobcats will have the opportunity to vote. Our faculty have had to rework their courses, attend training, and work additional hours to prepare for a high quality delivery of the QFlex model. Our staff has had to pitch in and live out the reality of that one line that is usually at the end of our position descriptions, other duties as assigned. And with all of this going on, we're here today to open our new academic year, and it truly has been a heck of a journey. The spirit of Ubuntu gives me hope as we begin this new semester. Being in quarantine for months and continuing to remain physically distant has taken a toll on me, and I'm sure for many of you. It has reminded me of how important human connection is to my health and well-being. In my role as Vice President of Equity and Inclusion, I'm charged with helping our institution realize our vision of inclusive excellence. The American Association of Colleges and Universities calls for higher education to address diversity, inclusion, and equity as critical to the well-being of a democratic culture. Making excellence inclusive is thus an active process which colleges and universities achieve excellence in learning, teaching, and student development, institutional functioning, and engagement in local and global communities, end quote. At Quinnipiac, our goal is to foster conversation, exposure, and engagement with all people, thoughts, and ideas from all corners of the world. Inclusivity and diversity help our students develop empathy, compassion, and appreciation for the differences that make the world a fuller place. And so for us, inclusive excellence is not a destination. It's a habit that is practiced, and it must be practiced consistently. We will not always get it right, but we continue to work along this path to improve and continue to transform our institution. I know it can work, because despite the few stumbles that we may have had historically or currently, I've seen our institution change for the better over the past 2 years. These small changes give me hope for the possibilities of our connected future. And so a few years ago, during one of our student welcome events, the speaker at the time, Wes Moore, stated, "We're not the products of our environment. We are the products of our expectations." And so what do we expect of ourselves here at Quinnipiac? How do we see ourselves in this plan for inclusive excellence? What can we do in our spheres of influence to ensure this work is embedded into the fabric of our campus culture? With all that we are facing in our nation, we must connect with one another and see our humanity. Our humanity is a fragile thread that connects all of us. And so together, we can do our part to create a more beautiful and humane existence for all. and ending in the spirit of Ubuntu. I am because you are. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Don. That was beautiful. All right. Switching gears to look at that, a new location, out on location, I should say. Sophia Marshall, the 2020-21 SGA president. Over to you, Sophia, in the gym.
Thank you so much. Yep, here I am. Yeah, so I wanted to, make this as authentic of an experience as I could. So typically on campus, you would be wearing a mask at all times, but for the sake of this speech, because I'm alone in this super large gym, I am gonna take my mask off. So just give me a second. A little better. Okay. So good evening, Bobcats. I'm incredibly honored to be speaking with you tonight. My name is Sophia Marshall, and I am your Student Government Association President for your 2020 to 2021 academic year. As I sat down to prepare for this speech, time and time again, I struggled to find the words I wanted to say. What does one share with a student body who is enduring a global pandemic while at the same time finding their voice through a substantial civil rights movement? Or to an incoming class who has experienced their high school graduation, prom, and end of year celebrations in an entirely different fashion than they had envisioned? I couldn't begin this address without acknowledging the incredible power and tenacity we have as a group and as a generation, particularly with this incoming class. The truth is, there is no perfect speech, no magic words I can say right now to erase some of the uncertainty and maybe even fear that you may be experiencing. And I say that because I'm living through those same feelings myself. These past 6 months, we've learned a lot about ourselves. From memorizing too many TikTok dances for our own good, myself included, to standing shoulder to shoulder with friends, family, and complete strangers as we spoke out about what we believe, to transitioning into an almost completely digital world overnight, sometimes at the expense of our mental health, we truly have endured and experienced incredible societal change in a short period of time. For me, however, this pandemic has provided me the opportunity to make an important realization against a tidal wave of change, that both the power of reflection and the appreciation of time are essential. Two things that I think we too often as young adults forget. Tonight, I hope to share a little bit about my time here at QU thus far in the hopes that you may learn from it. As I was reflecting on this welcome, I couldn't help but think back to the 2006 movie Click, starring Adam Sandler. The movie begins when Sandler becomes increasingly absorbed in his aspirations to work his way up in his company. His wife grows frustrated with his disinterest in spending time with their family, as Sandler focuses more and more on his future. All hope is lost until Sandler meets a man who offers him a universal remote that will allow him to skip through the parts of his life that he deems boring. So, Sandler happily begins clicking through his life, believing it is better than it was before, until he makes the horrific realization that he can no longer control his life. And that in the hopes of flashing forward to the good parts, he wasted some of the best moments. In the end, Sandler realizes that he spent so much time thinking about his goals that he had forgotten to remain present in his life. 3 years ago, I stepped out of my car named Glinda. By the way, I should probably explain. I named my car Glinda. She's a 2002 Nissan Maxima. She's great. Anyways, I stepped out of Glinda into the uncharted territory of North Lot for orientation, terrified of leaving behind the life I built for myself over the previous 18 years. I remember taking a deep breath as I began to walk towards the gym, pushing through everything, telling me to go back into Glinda and drive back to Massachusetts. High school was safe for me. I was involved with the same group of friends I had been engaged with for years, and I had a consistent role within the social pyramid. The fresh start I was being given, the fresh start that most of you are being given here at QU, regardless of your age, both excited and terrified me. The opening ceremony passed in a blur as my nerves only heightened. I was one new face in a sea of what seemed like thousands, and as I watched orientation leaders introduce themselves, I couldn't help but wish I was literally anywhere else, which is ironic because I'm now an OL. Two upperclassmen OLs, who at the same time seemed the two sole determinants of my fate, introduced themselves as my orientation leaders. We're all familiar with the Jolly Rancher icebreaker, right? Just in case, you essentially choose a Jolly Rancher flavor, and the number of letters in that flavor correspond to the number of fun facts you have to give to yourself. Of course, I chose blue raspberry. I tend to mask any doubt I may be experiencing with humor, and after facing my fears and proudly giving my fun facts, one comment and one comment only rang true from the group's feedback. Oh, this is going to be the sassy one. Though it may have been a joke, my group followed suit and seemingly didn't take me seriously for the rest of the day. I left orientation feeling defeated and alone. Was I good enough? Did I belong here? What if I never found my place at the university? When I returned to campus, I made the choice that in order to fit in, I was going to have to be someone that I simply was not. I spent the entirety of my first semester forcing friendships with the people around me, and my days waiting for the moment when I would truly be happy, focusing only on the future and on my goals. I viewed happiness as a final destination and awaited it to arrive in all of its glory. I'd seen so many movies, Instagram posts, and stories of people having the best days of their lives in college. I didn't understand why it wasn't happening to me. Like Sandler, I was wishing my life away and was waiting for that moment, that one event to happen for me to consider myself successful and happy. Through my first 2 years of college, I portrayed myself as a confident, successful woman, the woman that I thought people wanted me to be. However, at the end of my sophomore year, my world of perfection came crashing down. I ran for student government executive board, and looking back at my 2-year record of leadership prior, I thought my peers would rally behind me. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case. Almost the entire organization backed my opponent. At 9 a.m. on election day, instead of standing outside greeting my peers, I was standing in my advisor's office with tears streaming down my face. In that moment, I knew I had to change. To my surprise, the student body actually decided to give me a chance and elected me to the position. And from that moment on, I truly never looked back. I knew I had to be a more authentic leader, but more importantly, a more authentic person. It took until my junior year for me to finally realize what I was missing, once I stopped pretending and started being honest with myself about what it really meant to be me. By the way, one of the best things that happens when you stop pretending is that you find the people that truly make you the best version of yourself. And I definitely did. Suddenly, I knew who I was and I wasn't ashamed of it. I realized life was never about that next big thing or that one big moment, although it was important that I had aspirations. Life was about the present moment and being able to appreciate the ups and downs of the situation at hand. These unprecedented times have charged a period of transformation within our communities, within this nation, and in the world. We have the power this year to enact massive change by banding together as one, whether that be on a national level by proving that Quinnipiac cares about and will vote in national and local elections, or simply by as a whole community committing to reach out to a next door neighbor when we feel them becoming distant. Big or small, the choices we make at Quinnipiac will shape us and pave the path towards our futures. When I was a first-year student, I looked up at the then student body president giving the same welcome address that I am right now in the same gym, and turned to the girl sitting next to me and simply said, "That's going to be me senior year." Although probably a naive statement at the time, as I knew nothing about the role or how much I would change over the course of the next 3 years, I set a goal for myself in that moment. Now, 3 years later, I stand before you, the first female student body president to be elected in 15 years, and an entirely different woman than I was when I first stepped onto campus. Although I might not be able to see each of you in front of me as I originally envisioned, I'm now able to talk to all faculty, staff, the entire student body, and even my mom, dad, and little sister. Hi, guys. So, what was the point of all of this? To watch Click? No, although it is a good movie. I do, however, want to leave you with 4 important takeaways from these anecdotes, which will hopefully help this year. Number 1, if you want something, set that goal for yourself and then achieve it. Number 2, if you don't like who you were last year, last month, or yesterday, then change. And always remember that you have 100% control over the choices that you make today. This is your fresh start. Be present and be you. Number 3, you will change greatly as you move through your college experience, and regardless of the amount of time you have left here, embrace it. 4, finally, remember, happiness is not a destination. It's in the little moments spent with a new friend, walking through campus at 3 a.m. with no particular destination in mind. It's in the little victory of realizing you stood up for what you believed in against all odds. And it's in the moments that you didn't even know would be some of the best of your life until you've already lived them. 2020 has been a year of historical adversity, but that doesn't mean that we can't embrace this year and overcome it as a community. We have the unique power to make this school year the year that we want it to be. One full of connection, love, and change. So please, remember to do your part in keeping our community safe and making sure we're able to stay on campus. we have the power to prove everyone who's doubting us wrong. So finally, welcome home, Bobcats, and remember, be you, be present, and wear your mask. Thank you. Go Bobcats.
Thank you, Sophia. That's a perfect ending message for our time together. And I'll welcome everyone to come back and wish everyone a goodbye. But perfect as a reminder that, you know, while there are many things outside of our control, actually doing what we need to do in order to keep us all on campus for the entirety of the semester is largely in our control. And so I have faith in the community and look forward to walking through this unusual journey of a semester with you all. So President Olian, any final words?
Go Bobcats strong, which we will.
All right. Good night, everyone.
Good night.